All right. Well, hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining in tonight. We are in day 4 of the 14 days of Brotherhood Empowerment. And man, y'all, I am so excited for tonight. Tonight is going to be absolutely amazing. So I have a special guest with us tonight. We're going to go a little bit different direction than we've been going in the past few days. We're moving into a new segment of this 14 days. The first 3 days, we talked about identity. Over the next several days, we're going to talk about leadership. And I'm telling you guys, we have a leadership guru with us tonight. So if you're new to the Faith for Life Brotherhood, it is the men of Faith for Life. And we actually are a group of men who we believe, in following Jesus and iron sharpening iron. Here's how we say this. We say that as the brotherhood, you never have to fight alone. So no matter what battles you're going through, we're going to be right there with you, helping you, praying for you, empowering you. You never have to wander alone, because as men, sometimes we don't always know the direction that we should go. And we're going to be right there with you to help you find God's path. And you never have to celebrate alone. Because man, God's doing stuff in our lives, and many times we as men, we celebrate by ourselves, and we are a group of men who want to celebrate everything God does in your life with you. Ecclesiastes 5, chapter 5, verse 12 is our foundational verse. It says, "And though a man might prevail against one who is alone, two will withstand him, and a threefold cord is not quickly broken." So that's what we want to be. We want to be right there along with you, connecting you to Jesus and empowering you in whatever way we can. Tonight, I'm gonna pray, and then I'm gonna introduce our guest. And man, I can't wait to hear all that God says tonight. So let me pray. If you're able to, just bow your heads really quickly. Lord, we thank you just for this opportunity to be able to learn more about who you've made us to be, how you've wired us, the expectations that you have for us. God, I thank you for the technology to be able to connect with each other in this way. And we just give this time to you tonight to speak in whatever way that you want to speak, and do whatever it is that you want to do. Holy Spirit, we just give you the freedom to move even through the technology, no matter where we're watching or listening. God, we just give you the freedom to do what you want to do in our lives and in our hearts. In Jesus' name, amen. So my guest tonight is we met, I guess, 2 years ago.
Yep.
I guess it was two, maybe three. I don't know, two.
Two, three
My
at this point. The weeks
it
feel like
was 2 or 3 years ago. We met at actually at kind of like a men's retreat, and is one of those where a whole bunch of guys come together, and we don't, most of us don't really know each other, and so we're trying to like figure out and talk to each other and figure out who's who. And uh and so you get in these sessions where we're just talking about God and talking about our lives, and all of a sudden this guy, I'll never forget it, he was sitting on the end from where I was sitting, almost like farthest place away from where I was sitting in this long circle. And we're talking and we're talking, and all of a sudden he chimes in, and it was just, I mean, it was just like power. I mean, it was just wisdom. It was just God was clearly speaking through him. And I was like, man, who is that guy? And so over the last couple of years, we've gotten to know each other a little bit better. He's super busy, and he's doing a lot. But man, I'm telling you guys, it's going to be phenomenal tonight. So our guest is Coach RJay Brash. I'm saying that right. I got it right this time.
sir.
Coach has been coaching basketball for 17 years. He's been an assistant at all kinds of different levels in college, Division II, Division III, JUCO. He's been 10 years an assistant. He's had 7 years of head coaching experience at the Division II level, where he took over a mediocre program and turned it into a championship program and left it as a championship program. He has more than 15 former players in education and in coaching. And as you hear him and his heart tonight, you'll see that that's not just something that we put to introduce him, but like that's a passion of his, is to build up men and see them beyond, have success beyond basketball. He has 3 years as director of a player development in the NBA Combine. He's trained over 10 NBA guys and an all-star. He's now an assistant coach at Boise State. Off the court, he's just as successful and accomplished. He's got a book on Amazon called Culture Maximus, and he's actually going to be giving away some of those tonight. So we're going to do that tonight for sure. He's also a part of the White House Millennials Advocate Group, which is a faith-based group where he has a lot of influence and a lot of opportunity to make an impact beyond the basketball court. He's a generations wellness trainer, trained over 10,000 educators in workplace wellness from Seattle all the way to the United Kingdom. Mentor, an artist, an activist. I think he can still hoop a little bit. I've seen some videos.
A little bit.
And he's also a husband. He's also a father and has a newborn father as well.
Yeah.
Doesn't have a newborn father. He has a newborn child. So man, this guy, I'm telling you, I'm so honored that he would invest some time in us here in the Brotherhood. So Coach RJ, man, thank you so much for just carving out some time and being with us. I really want to jump right into the question tonight. We want to talk about, why is it important to lead ourselves first? And we're talking about men need to be leaders, and how can we lead others if we can't lead ourselves? Can you talk to us a little bit about why it's important for us to be able to lead ourselves well?
Just in opening, I want to say, can't hear me? How about now? Now?
Oh no.
All right, hold on.
There we go. Whoa, man, what's going on? Let me get out of this. Okay, here we go. Now, let's try now.
Now?
There we go.
All right.
Sorry, Coach. My bad. That's my bad.
So I'll say this. You're having issues with the speaker. My ring light broke. I mean, bought a ring light like 19 weeks ago because of the Zoom life. But here's what I'll say. Even in the opening, when I was writing out what to send you, it made me understand how many people in my life I have followed behind and not just took notes from, but took constructive criticism from and took life from. I also, when I hear you read all that I'm involved with, it shows to me the difference of what my mentors look like have allowed me to carve my own path uniquely. I think a lot of us want to lead ourselves, but in the terms of leading ourselves, we want to mirror who we are being led by. And you have a lot of people who go from armor bearer to twin, and I'm not sure that's the rite of passage God would have for us. And I've been blessed enough to not be smart enough to not get jobs right away, to have to learn the right, through rites of passage, but also to be thrown to the fire when I didn't know how to fight. And had to have I think yesterday you talked about David. I had to face the lion, I had to face the bear, I had to face the criticism. And so it helped me to be where I'm at today. So to lead yourself well, I think you first have to understand what community you're in and who's leading you and how are you allowing yourself to be led.
Yeah, which is so important. What would you say to the guy who's like, man, I look around my community and I don't see anybody that I want to follow. I don't see a great leader. How do they find that leader?
To that, I would say that's an excuse. And so that you should get rid of that one, because me and you both know, and every man that's on this call, on the Zoom knows, if you're a hooper and you go to a city, you find a run. If you're a golfer and you go to the city, you find the course. If you're a barber, you go to the city, you find a barbershop. So if you keep saying that you can't find it, your spirit ain't looking, because you don't want to find it because you know what it will do to you before it will do for you. So I think that is an excuse. But here, let me give you an applicable tool that I used in my own life. Is when I first started out in coaching, I was at a Division III level, University of Puget Sound. And every Sunday night, I had a teacher that, had kind of taught me this practice. I started this thing called the Board of Directors. So every Sunday night, I would have meetings with my board of directors for my life. And so one week I'd meet with TD Jakes. I'd meet with Cornell West. I meet with Michael Jordan. Now I'm meeting these people on YouTube, and I'm watching all their sermons, and I'm watching their movies, and I'm watching their videos, and I'm reading their books. And I learned that proximity for a mentor is not important as we make it seem. And I can learn so much by didactically tearing apart how someone arrived at a place versus asking them, how'd you arrive there? And so I always tell people, like, my board of directors switches time to time, and I can see in my YouTube history how my train of thought from mentor to mentor begins to travel. So if you are on this call and you're like, I don't have a leader in my community, I don't know what that looks like, I would say to go write down the 20 most powerful people that you've ever heard of in your life. Write down all 20, then take the next 5 weeks, the next 4 weeks, and do 5 every Sunday for a week. And so that Sunday to Sunday, that's all I'm watching at night. I'm watching game film, and I got that audio on in the background. And so that's a tool that works. And then I journal. I brought out my journals because I didn't know which way it was going. So I got journals for every month. If you want to do something, you have to really be about it.
Man, that's so good. So you find these 20, just say 20 powerful or just men that you look up to in some way, and you find their content, you listen to them, you watch them. What specifically are you looking for? What are you listening for as you watch them?
So reverse engineering it for me, what I'm looking for are trends, right? So if John Maxwell is facing the same things that um, John Lewis faced, because they're both carving out new paths, they're both going against the grain, because there wasn't someone, I won't say monopolizing the leadership space, but making it theirs, in the sense of, you're going to buy my stuff and you're going to learn from me. Like, so there were things that they faced in those trends. And then you look at, when I did LeBron James, just him going from high school to the NBA, it was the same trends. You're going to have these wave of detractors. You're going to have 3 or 4 whispers of you can do it, but there's really not going to be anybody who gives you the green light and gives you and turns the steering wheel for you. And so it's like, what I see is the trends. And I also do this, I listen for people they listen to. So when I'm researching Maimonides or I'm researching Kierkegaard, is because the people that I'm listening to, that's where they're grabbing their wisdom. So then now I just go down a train of thought, and you got to be smart in some regard, just because you don't go down those rabbit trails, but you go on a train of thought of advancing your thought and not leaving your living room.
Yeah.
I think that for me is the trends. And then the second thing that I look for is how they turn their dream to profit. So what does that look like? Because I think you even spoke to it last night. What you will do for free is not oftentimes what God called you to do. And I believe that. And the reason I believe that is because I don't believe God calls us to anything but to people. And when we call ourselves something other than to the people, we put our vocation in front of our spirit. And so for me, I'll choose this vocation that puts me in front of these types of people, because these types of people have a bent ear to listen to me. Yeah. And so for me, that's what kind of the things I look for.
Man, that's so good, because, I used to coach as well. And the big similarity I see between coaching and pastoring, or really coaching in any of the passions I have, is being in front of people. Not in front of people in like not in front, having influence with people, having people that will allow you to pour into their lives, and most of the time they don't know it, but they pour back into our lives, right? Okay, so I listen to these guys. I'm looking for trends. I'm learning from them. I'm being intentional with that. What are some other ways that we can learn to lead ourselves well?
So for me, it's been this trend of actually, one, being in the Word on a routine. So making it paramount. So making that my foundation, because I tried so many times to get to a place and I would skip that step. I'd be very good in doing these other things, but there was always this void of peace and tranquility and calmness that I could not have. And then I started to look at the people that I respected the most in this sphere, and they had so much peace in their feet. Wherever they walked, they were peace. They became those things. And when we try to build with systems and with tools without acknowledging what we need from the word, that we become the word, then I think that's where we get ourselves in trouble, because we replace our devotion with our vocation. We replace our praise with the praise from man. And then next thing you are influenced by the masses or groupthink. So for me, it's the word. And what do I mean by that? Bible app. Why do I say the Bible app? Because it's competitive for me. Why? Because every day they keep score. They say, Coach Barsh, you've been in your Bible app 217 days now. That means
hey, Coach, you want to do a big bank versus little bank on the Bible app?
Oh, you might kill me. Are we posting it out?
I don't, I'm just asking. I don't know where you're at, but I can't lie. I'm probably a little too proud of where I'm at.
I'm
222. That's pretty good.
What you at? See, you pastoring us. Pastor pushing 1,000.
No, I mess with there's a group of guys that I get to disciple, and I mess with them, and they know, like, hey, pastor might have a little bit too much pride in that number right there, but it's the same thing. Like, for me, it's competitive. So, and it drives me to be consistent.
So for me, what I ripped myself away from was always reading to understand, reading to comprehend, or reading to teach. So sometimes, based on the nature of the day, when I open that Bible app, it's for the Bible to read me today. So I'm going to read 1 or 2 verses, and I'm acknowledging I need this word. So word got to pull out of me today. What I've done with my baby boy is when he wakes up, we're going through the Bible throughout the year. So when he wakes up, first thing he hears, I press play on the Bible app, and it's reading through the whole entire Bible. So by the time he's 1 year old, it'll be like a year and 3 months, he would have heard the entire Bible.
Man, so good.
Yeah, and that was just I need to make sure I'm in it, because I know there's gonna be some late nights, early mornings, and how am I gonna make this happen? So for me, the reason that's important is because when our eyes acknowledge a thing, then we also move understanding that is important to me. So I've acknowledged that for me to build on what God wants me to build, my foundation has to be the word. And so that, to me, is vital. And then, to me, is the solitude. I think as men, we do a poor job at rest. I think we do a poor job at rest. I don't think, God's keeping score how many days you went hard in a row. I don't think that. I believe it was John Wesley who took a sabbatical for a month or two here recently. And I remember him saying, he's talking to one of his mentors, and he asked him, why are you taking a day off? And he said, because God did. Like, we forget, we skim over the words, the Sabbath, I think. And so for me, solitude is so important, because busyness is the illness of spirit. Thomas Merton said that. And as men, we make busyness is the new distraction for Christian men. And it's busy with good things, not bad things. We're busy with good things. And those good things end up making our mind get to a place where we can never slow down. And so for me, it's the word, it's solitude, and whether that's prayer and solitude, whether that's just being quiet, but having a rhythm, and then being selfish about it. Baby, I can't talk right now. Son, you need to be quiet right now. I have to get me together. Like, taking ownership of that. I think those are vital, because as a leader, you're always walking into a storm. It doesn't know how big it is or how small it is, but that's why a leader is a leader, because there's going to be friction. So being present is usually the best way to bring peace.
Man, that's so good. And I've talked a lot about Sabbath. It's like the forgotten commandment, right? Like we would never go around praising somebody that brags about lying or stealing, but people who go around bragging about being on their grind and they ain't had a day off in 52 days, like we celebrate that. And like I'm like,
And I celebrated that early in my career. And
I mean, a
when,
lot of just about everybody celebrates that.
when I go back and look at why, is because I really believed that I was in competition with everyone. And once I had that foundation on the word, I realized there was no competition in being me. So whether I am to influence the one person that becomes a Billy Graham or that becomes, a thought leader and has influence of a billion, or I'm the person that has that influence, neither one of those is more influence to me now.
Yeah.
It's both.
Yeah. So, and I know you've been in this stage before, but I've been in this stage with a newborn and coaching basketball at a college level. Like I don't know that everybody understands how hectic and how much lack of rhythm you can have in your life with those two things alone. I mean, coaching, you're partly responsible for a group of young men, so that means 24/7 you may get a call to have to do something or and in a newborn, I mean, everybody's on their schedule. So how are you doing that right now? How are you protecting that time of solitude, that Sabbath? How, because if we can learn how you're doing that right now, then I don't know of any of us right now that would have an excuse as far as schedule wise like you do.
I can't say you ever figured that out. I think that there's a tension there that we deserve to experience going through fatherhood. I believe that that tension is healthy. Um, it sucks at times, but it's beautiful as well. But I would tell you this, I was very mindful about the jobs and opportunities I took. So coming to Boise State and working for Leon Rice, I knew that I would be able to be present with my family. Why? Because that's one of his pillars in his own personal life. So I said no to several schools en route to the right school, even though some may have been bigger and some may have been ranked higher and some may have presented a different opportunity. God got me to a place to where I didn't see competition. And so I took the position, and then I walked into the room when I interviewed and we had the conversation, and I had a sense of peace about what I do and the decisions I make. So I don't ever fear, and this is, man, men, and I'm learning this, we have to get to the place that we don't feel like if we're missing something, that we've missed out.
Yeah.
That so because it doesn't make sense. It's this tension that the enemy creates in us, that if I'm home, then I'm missing out the opportunity to take care of home. So how is this make sense?
Yeah.
And so I think of learning to, sometimes we get to places premature to where we have to prove ourselves every day. And so I would say to some of us that if you're in that place where you feel like you weren't equipped to be there, but you got there at osmosis, then maybe you should leave because it's not sustainable long term.
Yeah.
So for me, it was those things. And then I'm wired very different by the grace of God. I think they diagnose you medically with something that I'm wired with. And so my whole life I've been able to nonstop. And then it's part of being in coaching has helped me do that.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So leading yourself, why do you think it's important that we learn to lead ourselves before, God will promote us into the influence that he wants us to have?
I think Cav really understood this when he was explaining all his explanations from the word and all the similar paths that the men in the Bible and the woman of the Bible went through, where they were in the backside of the desert. We've all heard that sermon. But it's one of those things. I always think of Simon and Cyrene. because he was pushed in a position to help carry the cross. And he had his sons watching. And then his sons then went and helped carry the cross for followers of Jesus in their life. So I think it's so important to lead yourself well, because your habits will be the people behind you will take those habits. So if you forsake areas of leading yourself well, you will always give that handicap to your people. It's just, I mean, I know this in coaching because I saw my teams when we would be horrible in this part of the game, and I would look at my coach and I'm like, man, it's a blind spot for me. So leading yourself well is vital, because as men, we are contagious in spirit. And so we are giving off, whether you want to be, if you're irritated, if you're angry, you're upset, you're giving that off. And speaking to the extreme times we're in, and the young men that I've talked to that are protesting, I said, you can go protest. I'll go with you. You can go fight on the front lines. Like Pastor Super said last night, that it's bringing out the men in the home. But I tell you this, if you go home and you pick up your 5-month-old and he feels that anger, he can't decipher where it's from. Mm. So you have to be able to lead yourself well, so you can transition into different roles as a leader, because we don't get to just, oh, that's just how he is. And I grew up in churches where that's what we said about that's just how he is. This is his day. That's what he does when this happens. I don't want to be that way. So that's why I've decided to lead myself well. And I've had to step out of sometimes Christian thinking. And I don't know if that even makes sense, but learn other practices and find spiritual ones that mirror, as far as like prayer and meditation, or being in nature and getting away from the busyness of the day. Things that I was not taught in church, of how to be present, how to calm my breathing down. Like those are all practices that I've learned in my journey that I didn't learn in church, but have made me more powerful with my time with God.
Man, so there's so much in that.
Yeah, I'm a bit of a rambler, like a Kanye rant, but on the Christian.
No, it was so good. It was so good. It was really, really good. Because just thinking about our guys, some of what you're saying is really practical, and I think that would really help them. Getting outside of the pressured moment, going, maybe that's going for a walk, or going for a ride on a bike, or a run, or can you talk a little more about some of those practical things that we could do to make sure that we are giving our best to our home first?
Yeah. So for me, it is important to get in an environment where you're active. So for me, going somewhere and working out, getting that sweat, getting your adrenaline going, allowing your ego to be able to have bravado in a safe place. Right. I think that's why so many people love basketball and love playing tennis, because, you can you're a really great guy. You can go talk all the trash in the world on the golf court, and then on the golf course, and then you can go home and it's okay. And so I think finding something to do in that realm, I would encourage them that if they find a mentor, to find what they love and start learning it. Right. So I'm getting ready to learn how to play pickleball. So it's a new deal. Right. So that's one thing. The second thing is finding a place that's just yours, that's outside, that no one knows about, that you go to collect your thoughts. So for me, there's this place around the corner that I go to, and it's pretty much, it's my altar outside. It's where I go, stop my bike right there. And for some reason, our mental faculties are turned by environments. And so in that environment, I've talked so much to God about things that my heart is in a posture to receive in that area. And I think that needs to be outside the home. That needs to be somewhere else. The reason I think faith works so much is because it allows us to take our shame and our pain and put it somewhere. But I think in the terms of being a leader and being a father, you take on the pain of those that you love, but you forget to put yours somewhere. And then you become tense. And so that's one practice, is going somewhere where you can be loud and obnoxious and it's safe and it's okay. Pick up boxing, pick up kick. And these are things that are abnormal to most Christian men because we are in such a routine that our circle doesn't do this. And I'm encouraging you right now that if your circle looks just like you don't have a circle, you have a wall of mirrors. And we don't need to live in a wall of mirrors. There's a story about this big mansion in Rome, and the architect built a room that had all these mirrors in it, and people would go through and they would be rattled by the mirrors. And then one time a dog actually got into the hall of mirrors, and the dog's looking around, and the dog thought he was fighting with 7 different people, and he's barking, and 2-3 days go by and they come in there and they realize that the dog had killed himself by himself, simply because all he did was fight internally with what he thought was fighting him. And that's what happens to men is we continually hear our thoughts and others, so we never get a challenging thought. So we go home and then we lay our head on our pillows and we're like, that don't feel right. And then we get that routine. So it's like, okay, you got to get in a situation in your circle where you can look at it and say, okay, he's challenging me, but I love him. And he's making me take a step back. Why? Because that's where you'll feel your anger, in the challenge of thought. That's where you'll feel opposing views and you'll be able to, okay, get that space out. So that to me is making sure that my friend group, like, I think it was MySpace, you had your top 8. I mean, your top 8 can't have the same playlist. That's what I always tell my guys. Like your circle of friends can't all have the same playlist. You can't all listen to the same rap music. You got to have somebody in there. You got some country, something in there. So you got to, for me, if you're a leader, right? That's how I view it.
So how do they get that circle? Because, a lot of guys, like, we will fight for peace, especially in relationships that we get to choose. So I'm going to choose to be around the guys who don't create that friction a lot more. Like, I'm going to choose that a lot more naturally than choosing to be around somebody who doesn't think like me or wants to challenge me. Like, men fight for that peace, right? Like we have friction in other places. We fight for the peace in the relationships we get to choose. So how do we move past that to create a circle and not the wall of mirrors?
I would say that in their life, and this is bulletproof, I've had this conversation with too many to know that this is true. In their life, there is a friend or someone they know who they had a conflict with, or they've seen something that they didn't like, and they severed communication, whether it's by osmosis, whether it's by moving, and they decided, I don't want to be around that. Okay, so that is the opportunity, and it's what I call, they need to have the red carpet relationship conversation. You need to have 2 of these. So call this person up, and this is the craziest and the hardest thing to do, and say, speak your piece. Like, hey, we haven't talked in a while. I know we think different. Help me understand how you got to your points and how'd you grow up? Like, I'm making all these assumptions. Here's what happens when you do that, is you stop making judgments off of assumptions of people you don't know when you had that conversation. And then when you meet somebody at Walmart or Costco who doesn't look like you and doesn't talk like you, they don't feel the tension of, he don't want to know me at all. We're seeing these people every single day, but we're judging them off the assumptions that we built in our heart. So we're prejudiced, and that's just life. That's who we are. But until you have that reconciliation with that conversation from years past, you can't bring that new spirit into your present. So you've got to go back. And I went back and I did this. And what it taught me was I didn't listen, because no one can tell you their story from their real story. No one can tell you their real story and you still hate them. But we, and I say we, me included, we don't know how to ask the questions to get the real story. So the way you get the real story is by first saying, I was wrong, because I made these assumptions about you, bro. How you dealing with all this? I know you voted for so and so. I know you doing this. I know you don't like my t-shirt. Let's talk, man. Just me and you. Nobody got to know we had this conversation. Pure confidentiality. But I got to get better. And the way you get them is by saying, I got a son. I have a daughter that's 8. I have a son that's 9. And I don't want them to feel bitter. And I don't want them to have Zooms and marches in 20 years. And so that to me is how you get your circle different.
Man, I think about one of the things I love about social media is one thing that most people don't like. And I love that right now, across my social media platforms, I can scroll through my timeline and see pro Trump, anti Trump. I see rebel flags, I see black fists. And I love that. But here's one thing that I've learned over the years, and I feel like it's a big point of what you were just saying, is everything you're talking about takes some real maturity. Like for me, it takes maturity to see, there's a guy, a white guy I was having a conversation with, and he actually goes to our church, and he got into one of my conversations. I think it was about, can a Christian be racist, off of D1 song.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next day he posts this picture, and it has 2 rebel flags on it. And it says, if I can't celebrate my heritage, why should you be able to remember your history? Now, for me, that's like, I want to block you. I don't want to talk to you. Like, we've had other conversations, and he told me that the Civil War wasn't about slavery. Okay. So my blood boils, my fist ball up. And what I've learned is to not create what you're saying, these walls of mirrors, is it takes a lot of maturity on my part to be able to continue those conversations. I mean, we've seen that in the group that me and you are in the Iron Sharpens Iron, where emotions get high, and the easy thing to do is start calling names and pointing fingers. The difficult, mature thing is, hey, I know your heart. Like, so this guy, here's my point to this guy who posted that, I know him. I know that in his mind, in his heart, he doesn't believe he's racist. I know that he would go out of his way to help people who don't look like him. And he's done it, like, not just one time, but like sacrificially. And here's this disconnect that if I didn't know him, there was not the proximity of relationship, I'd be like, that dude is super racist.
Mm-hmm.
So I hear maturity in what you're saying. How do like, maturity can't just come with age. How do we mature as men?
It's the hard thing. It's a verse in the Bible that we don't like, that says some things only come by prayer and
Fasting.
And we've made fasting a ritual of first of the year. We've made prayer something we go and do. And so when that's how we've been taught, then we ask the questions and we wonder, can a Christian be racist? And then someone thinks, well, I'm not racist. Well, they go into a defense mode. But the whole idea between the maturity to me is having knowledge and understanding and the wisdom to know how to use it. So a lot of people have knowledge, a lot of people have understanding, but they have no wisdom of how to use it. So it doesn't help. Like every book that I have on my bookshelf uses every word from the Webster's dictionary, but somebody took those words and organized them. So now it's wisdom. The words are all in the dictionary, the words are there, but they're in a different way. And until you give God that space, and I'll tell you this, there's people that say, well, I do that, and I do that, and this is still my belief. I would say to that person, vulnerability of spirit only comes from sacrifice. And this could be the moment of them becoming vulnerable. And also, I know this with social media, social media is like smoke. And a lot of people do post things so they can stay in their circle. So they go to sleep, and they're the same guy that goes to sleep on their pillow, wishing they did not have to say that to belong to what they've learned belong to their whole life. So the fear of losing that group, losing those people, is not worth it.
Yeah.
And that, to me, because that's on, I guess you have to say this on both sides, where you see that, and you have those arguments. And I'll say that, all right, if you want to have a conversation with me, fast for 7 days, and then let's talk, and then let me know what you see when you see them.
Yeah, that's so good. So I want to talk about something you just said, because I think it's a part of leading ourselves well spiritually. So we talk about reading our Bible, we talk about praying, you know, obviously there's this idea of going to church and all these different Christian disciplines. But one of the things that, just as I've gotten to know you, I've seen you model really well is the discipline of fasting. I believe you're in a fast right now, or just
Yeah,
tell us about that.
it was supposed to end, but it's still going. So I grew up around an environment that had some people in it that fasted and didn't have prominent speaking roles, but seemed to always be the voice of reason and triumph. So they wouldn't be on the stage, they wouldn't do this. They sat in the corner, they did this, and they fasted, and they didn't say anything. And then when they spoke, you were just like, okay, I don't know what you just said, but my heart slowed down and my feet felt present. And then that breeze I just felt, that had to be God. And I would just always befuddled by, what is that? And the more that I read, I started, seeing different disciplines and other religions, that I think in Christianity, we get so caught on the grace that we lose the discipline in the disciplines, because, oh, we have grace. And so we don't, like we talked about the Bible, that we'll skip a couple days, no big deal. And that happens. I'm not saying that doesn't happen to all of us. And I'm not saying everyone has got to get to that place. But fasting for me is, he literally said in the Bible, some things only come by prayer and fasting. Like those are, so if we're not getting it through prayer, the next thing is to fast. And so for me, I fasted a lot growing up. I would do it with, different members of our church, and just, I started to find a rhythm of peace that I couldn't explain. And people would ask me like, oh, how'd you know that? And I'm like, I couldn't tell you. And then what I realized is, what fasting does for me is it organizes the knowledge and understanding into wisdom. So I know how to make decisions decisively. And then when I make the decisions, I'm talking to God, so there's no need to worry about the decision that I made. And so that's what fasting is to me. Lately here, I would say in the last 2 years, I've decided to make fasting more of a communicative process, to bring some people along on the journey, because it's been so beneficial to me. And there's been some scriptures in the Bible where it says you shouldn't show that you're fasting, and you shouldn't show these things. And I believe in the way that we are doing ministry now, that scripture and certain scriptures take away the application of a teacher that's teaching their people in process. And so what I try to do is, show that I'm fasting every now and then in a community aspect. And like the last one, I posted a video 21 days in a row, all organic, just turn the camera on and whatever just will go. And what I've learned from that is, no matter what you say and what you articulate, the Holy Spirit will take the word and have it land where it's supposed to land. If you're not worried, and your money and your life is not connected to the outcome of the thing.
Yeah. It doesn't return to him void.
It doesn't. And I look at my life, and I try to tell people, like, understand my life. Like, it is to me the greatest example of this works. Like the greatest example. Like, it doesn't make any sense. I've made decisions on the basketball court while I'm fasting that have won us games. Oh no, you haven't. Go ask my players. They'll tell you. Coach must be fasting. Like literally, that's what it's brought into my life.
That is so awesome. And you know, to the point of, you know, the scriptures about not showing publicly or in the community about your fast. There's also verses where everybody gathered to fast together. So clearly they know everybody's fasting. I mean, they're doing it together. So I think, you know, there's definitely seasons where God will have you fast and it's not anybody else's business. And then there's other community fasts that God will call us to. Um, you know, I, I think I remember just in a text conversation where you fast like consistently,
Yeah.
like
So
weekly.
yeah, I fast till I'm put this out there. So I do intermittent fasting. So I'll go till probably 5 or 6 every day.
Yeah.
Nothing but water. Never shared that really out loud. You know,
Oh man, I didn't mean to call it out, man.
intermittent fasting. So it's also a process of you know, wake up and I'm drinking as much water as I can. I'm drinking, you know, have a way I organize my morning, and I get a ton of water intake and get my vitamins and proteins. And but I literally will fast. I started out by doing I think it was 7 years ago. Every month I would do 3 days, 72 hours, nothing. And I just did that, and I wouldn't tell nobody. And the reason I did that, it was out of pain because I knew there were some things I was going through in my own personal life. And then my wife was diagnosed with leukemia, and now here I am coaching Division II NAI, and I'm living in an apartment, and I have a son that's 15 that I adopted, and you know I'm making 30-something thousand dollars, and I'm like, man, okay, God, I'm following you right now, and I don't know what to do, so I just started fasting, and I'm telling you, like, it doesn't, I can't even explain to you how many blessings have came by me being present when I met someone.
Talk about that. Being
So
present when you met someone.
so yesterday, I went to get I had a flat tire on my bike. This was a big moment for me because I'm riding my bike and I get a flat tire. And since I was in an intense fast, my first thought was, man, I got a flat tire. I wonder what I'm going to meet, who I'm going to meet because I have to get this fixed. I'm on the side of the road, and God says to me, I'm always sending my son. And so I'm thinking, okay, I get it. Jesus is coming. So, but I call my son. My son comes and picks me up on the side of the road, takes me home. Yesterday, I go to the bike shop. I walk into the bike shop and getting the tire fixed, and the owner and another guy were standing there, and they start talking to me, and I just said, it's gonna be okay. And before you know it, there was buckets of tears in front of them. And I go in the back and I just sit there and I just talk to them. And that happens so often that I'm present. Like I've realized there is no greater place to be if I'm letting God lead me to where my feet are. So I just want to be where my feet are. And the way that I'm wired, I talk on cue. And so that means I listen very bad. It's just a natural deal. And so for me, I've really had to shut up internally, look him in the eye, and hear him. And not say, well, the Bible says, and say, it's gonna be okay.
If you think about if you think about the people that you've met in your life that have really made an impact, most of the time at some level what they actually did was what you're saying.
Mhm.
It's not really about how they responded to you or having all the wisdom. It's that they genuinely authentically listened to you and cared about you. And you think about who's your favorite coach, not that you ever played for?
That I ever played for?
Yeah.
I would say my favorite coach, probably Carl Howe, that I played
Okay.
for.
Why?
Because he was aggressive with his words and he criticized every moment because he wanted the next one to be your best one. I also worked for him.
Yeah.
So if you didn't know him, you thought this guy's crazy. But if you played for him, you saw results.
Yeah.
I
So
don't.
when he was criticizing, when he was difficult, why did you guys press into that and press forward as opposed to like, man, forget this. I'm too good to listen to this.
It was a junior college, and when opposing coaches came to recruit you, they called you and they came to the door and they, had a meeting with you. When he came, he had a driver. He got out in a full suit. He had a briefcase. He sat down like he was John Gotti in the living room, and he opened up the briefcase and he had a 12-step.
This can go live, right? I don't know what's in this briefcase. I don't know.
It was, trust me, we was paying to play. And so he opened the briefcase and he had a plan for you. And he told you he's gonna fight for you. And then he would say, you can call my former players if you don't believe me. That's all the phrase you needed, because that's all we did. And then his former players were his best recruiters.
Yeah.
But
so you knew he cared.
He cared to a default sometimes.
Yeah.
He cared to a default sometimes, where it cost him opportunities, because he almost sometimes, and I know, and I would say 99.9 of pastors do this. They care so much that they lose somebody because they care about where they're headed more than they understand where they're at. And they're trying to save them, like, don't do it, please don't do it. They care so much that the person runs from the care. And they're just like, I can't take this anymore. And then they run for it. But all he was trying to do was get you to go to class and play hard. And you was skipping class and doing this, and now you don't have a scholarship. And now you're calling them back 2 years later, want to come back.
Yeah.
And I've seen that in churches where members leave and they come back, I'm sorry, Pastor, I was wrong. And I've admonished some pastors, like, I'm telling you, sometimes the best thing to do is act like you don't care.
Yeah, that's tough.
Exactly. That's why you're great.
Wow. Okay, so if we apply this to leading ourselves, though, this is really good, because I think a lot of times men don't lead themselves well because they don't actually care about themselves well.
Yeah, there's a voice that we listen to in our head that we've got to silence. We've got to know when to listen to it. I'm not saying put it on mute. We just got to silence and know that that voice is there, because it will save us at times. But we are our biggest critics. We are our biggest critics. And I think sometimes the voice in our head that tells us, slow down, or you're doing too much, you're doing that, it protects you from going into territories you haven't seen. So it protects you from being vulnerable. Oh, you're not good enough to try that. You're not good enough to do that. And so you listen to it and you rationalize by thinking, like, probably not. Look what that person's doing. I can never do that. And it's not that you can never do it, is you haven't jumped yet. So everyone said, oh, you got to jump for your dreams. You got to jump. Ignore that voice for a week and say, no, it's not about being great enough to do. I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to do it. So you have to listen to that voice. And I would tell parents this too. We have to watch how we talk about our kids. And here's what I mean. So a black mom and a white mom are sitting on a bench in front of a soccer field. And the black mom says to the white mom, oh, Johnny's playing very well today. That kid is doing well. And the white mom responds, you should see how he's doing in the classroom too. He got it going, man. I'm proud of that boy. And then the white mom says to the black mom, well, look at Deshaun. He's doing good. He's doing well. And in a moment of distraction, the black mom says, well, you should see that boy at home sometime. Now, I'm telling you, those little interactions and those words that they don't hear matter. Like, our words have so much power because it sends that internal voice, and that parent picks up the child knowing you just criticized them. You can't hide that in your eyes. You can't hide that in your heart. If you just said how great your kid was doing, if they were doing well and you saw them, there's a different way you pick them up. I know from experience. And so having a son that I adopted, I've been able to see that by seeing him tell me, he's 22 now, seeing him tell me a month ago, he didn't play basketball because he was nervous at the free throw line. Everybody's looking at him. And now he's at a point where he's got so much confidence, he can do whatever he wants. He's massive, strong, built, great in school, but it was just the reinforcement of the true voice. And the voice that tells you you can't do it is protecting you from the you you're supposed to be. And if you don't get in the word and you don't have prayer, we all need to have a sense of quiet time so we can have the time to hear the voice that's telling us what we actually should do versus the voice that's telling us what we should do in panic.
Yeah, that's so good, because that's the take every thought captive into obedience to Christ. And so you have to be in the word to, first of all, put those thoughts, those voices into obedience to the word. But then beyond that, you really need to be able to develop your spirit to hear from God so that you'll know. Yeah, go ahead.
I would say too, I've seen this in you and your wife on your live streams and on your the brotherhood and the sisterhood things that you're doing now. When I poke in and watch, is there's a healthy dose of celebration of small wins. And I think in our relationships as men, we don't feel like the small wins matter because the people we admire, their wins are so massive, right? I'm coaching at a Division II, and I want to be like this coach. He just beat so and so. Oh, my win doesn't matter. And if you don't make your wins matter at home, they won't matter when you walk out the door.
Yeah,
And
man,
so,
that is so good.
find a way to make the wins matter at home. Find a way, the smallest one. And it is a practice of futility because it's something that you're born and die every day in that world of finding the small win.
That's so good, because one of the things that I've become passionate about is, the scripture tells us that the tradition of men make the power of God of none effect. So when we get into, tradition, and this is why we do this, and even if you're talking about prayer and fasting or reading your Bible, and it becomes a tradition, you nullify the power of God. At the same time, I hear you saying something that's also really vital, that we should create, maybe tradition is not the right word, maybe it's systems within our homes to celebrate, to have times of solitude, to have times of discipline, that like, this is how we as a man, we run our homes. Like, I'm going to spend time in the word. I'm going to spend time in prayer. I'm going to fast. At times I'll invite the family to fast together. I'm going to have times of solitude and Sabbath. I'm going to have times where I, disconnect. And I think you're so right on the point of that God does something in different locations that's really, really hard to describe. And you find those places for you where God speaks to you like that. And man, that can be really, really powerful. So not putting, one of the ways we could say this is, don't put your faith in your faith. Don't put your faith in your prayer. Don't put your faith in your fasting. But in the same vein, create those systems to celebrate what God is doing and to allow you to have those disciplines. Because if you don't create it, it's not going to happen.
I think that's why you hear a lot of leaders and speakers say core disciplines or core routines. Why? Because if my core is tight and you hit me below the belt, I still stand. If you hit me in the head, I still stand because my core
is tight. Now, I might not work my core every single day, but over time, my routines in working my core are so locked in that I can survive a hit. And I think that is what we mean by core disciplines. And I understand the traditions, and the reason why traditions to me are full, sometimes become void, is because we've watched traditions in men that we end up not respecting.
Yeah.
So we really, I think in this generation, the most, we actually want to do what we say so bad. We
Yeah.
really do. That if we're not going to do it, we're not going to say it. And being anti-traditional is a great way to say, I don't want to do those things. And so I would say, so for me, communion in our house, right? We don't take it every week, but in moments of like where a lot's going on, the big distractions, I'll just put it out as a reminder in remembrance. Make sure you keep remembering through the season. Make sure we remember.
Yeah.
But I don't put it out every single day.
Yeah.
Now, beginning, I thought we were gonna take it, but I got married every single week. We're gonna, yeah. And so you don't want to do that, because then you become tied to a discipline without the response of activity that comes from a relationship.
Yeah. Man, that's so good. Everybody's loving this on YouTube, Coach. I got one question. I think that might be about our time. We have a question. So, how do men identify the negative roots from our childhood?
So there's something that we have to talk about, and that's trauma, right? And trauma is something that is squeezing you or pulling you away from who you should be. And a lot of people say, well, I don't know who I should be, so how do I locate the trauma? All right, so the first thing I say when you're trying to find those negative roots is to take away the word negative, right? Because once you have the wisdom, even in that negative, you will be able to turn it into a positive. God will use it for your good. So if you go on this search of find the negative roots, you almost go in the search with tension. But if you're in a place where you want to learn from these roots so you can, in a sense, know who you are, I would say go into it with a different mindset versus I'm going to rip these roots out. And there's just negative cycles in my life. And well, man, maybe you needed this negative cycle because your ministry's to that cycle. So I don't know how negative that is, because God pulled you out of that so you could see it in somebody before they kill themselves. So don't call your trauma, don't call it something that it's not yet. We name things too early. So I would say one thing I've done is I went all the way back and I would go 1 through 5, 5 through 10, 10 through 20, and 20 through 30. And I would look at those years and I would literally write down my experiences. 1 through 5, 5 through 10, 10 through 20, 20 through 30. I would write down my experiences, 1 page for each, right? And then I would write down some of the relationships I had in those moments. This is where I found the silent power of the fasting people. Because 10 through 20, I realized, man, I love this person so much, but they didn't really say a lot. They didn't really do anything to like, why do I have this feeling of joy for them? And I don't. They never preached, so I found those people in those moments. So you have to do that. And I don't know how you feel about this, but I would say you in the email, you said I could just kind of say what I want in this regard.
Yeah.
Every man needs a therapist.
I'm good with that.
And here's why I say in a therapist in our society can't be your pastor. And the reason I say that is because men right now in America, our ego is not in the place of that level of vulnerability to where we could unveil ourselves to a man and then learn from him every day. That's hard.
You know, one thing I've found, we do a 12-month like intense discipleship. And I mean, it's intense. I mean, these guys commit, they commit to the year, but really they're committing really for the rest of their lives to be a brotherhood. And Coach, one thing I've found is we have this meeting at the beginning where we tell our stories and we open it all the way up, and it's real and raw and vulnerable. What I've found is if I, as the leader, will really give them the real story and not just, oh, I wasn't good and I got saved and Jesus, but like, no, here's what I did. Here's how I used to think. Here's what happened. You know, man, it opens them up. And that genuine. So I agree with you. I think there is ego involved that keeps us from being willing to be vulnerable to leaders and then learn from them. But also, I think some of that lies on the leaders not being vulnerable.
I'll give you an easy application for every man that's on here. I call it the 5 H's. So heroes, hopes, highlights, history, and heartbreak. So go and write down your heroes, your history, your heartbreak, your highlights, and your hopes. Write them down to your truth. I don't know where I heard that phrase, that those 5 H's from, but I've done it with my team. And here's what I realized. We grew up looking at infallible leaders, and we knew that they were fallible in their life. We know that and so like what men want now is we want to follow a leader with a limp, someone that got hit but kept on going. And we want leaders that are showing us the limp. Now, you don't got to show everybody the limp, but if you're leading me, show me your scar. He said, can I see the hole in your hand? Not because he was doubting, because he wanted to see for him. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Like that to me is.
You know what's amazing about that is Jesus's holes weren't healed through the resurrection. He still had the holes after the resurrection. Man, hey, we're really out of time. I got some good questions on here. Do you got a few more minutes? Okay.
10 seconds on one thing.
No.
What do we call, what does the church call Thomas?
Doubting Thomas.
Who started that?
That I don't know.
Exactly. You see what words do to stories and the trauma it causes, that people don't even research the story for its true ethnicity because somebody with power called him a doubter.
You know what's crazy about that too? Do you remember when, might have been when Lazarus died, and they were like, let's go see Lazarus. And some of them were like, no, that's too dangerous. And Thomas was the one that was like, no, forget that. We'll die. We're going to go see him, or we're going to die trying. Like, that's the complete opposite of doubting Thomas.
Had a great sermon on doubting Thomas, and it went viral. So now Thomas is a doubter.
Wow.
Yeah, that's
wow. Right. Okay. I got a question here from one of my guys. And I say one of my guys, I don't mean like these are like, this is my guy. Okay. So it says you were talking about core discipline. What are some strong practices to have and maintain a strong core?
All right. So first thing in the morning, 15 minutes, I call it AIM: affirmation, intercession, meditation. And so sometimes I change the I to imagination depending on the group I'm talking to. So when I wake up in the morning, I have a water bottle. I can show you, I have 100 water bottles upstairs. And so at night, what I'll do is I'll grab a water bottle and I'll rip off of the label, and I will write a word on the water bottle: power, present. Right now, I'm not writing any words because I want to be so in the moment. That's just where I'm at in this season. But usually I write a word, I write 1 or 2 thoughts on the bottle. I then put my phone on airplane mode while I'm doing that. So about 10 minutes, writing down positive, power, win the day, little things. Then when I go to sleep, I put my phone face down. I put the water, boom, on top of my phone. I set my alarm for 15 and 15. So if I'm getting up at 7:45, I set it for 7:30. So I get up at 7:30, the first alarm goes off. I pick up the water, I read the words, I drink it. Get into my Bible for 5 minutes. That's my intercession. That's my imagination. So 5 minutes there. And then I will have some meditation, usually some music in that time. Boom. Now it's 7:45. I'm up. I don't leave my room until I am who I want to be when I walk out this door. It's called that's how I start my morning. I ripped that away from my board of directors. So many of them were so intentional with the first emotion of the day. They were so intentional with how they organized their morning. And some people say, well, I have kids. Lead yourself. So now they start doing these things, right? When I look upstairs and I see my son, I wonder like, crap, I didn't teach him how to do that. I didn't have to. He saw it. He mirrored it. And so organizing it that way. Here's one thing as men that we do every single morning. We get on the treadmill of worry or the treadmill of comparison. That's called social media, and that's called tweets, and that's called text messages, and it's called email. And I don't care how strong you think you are, when you open that phone first thing in the morning, you either are worried or comparing. No one's spirit reads that in a pure place. I've asked the most richest people that I've known, I've asked support. No one gets the power to read those without emotion. I haven't met that person yet. So you have to guard your first response, right? And so intentional mornings is so powerful, and it's only 15 minutes. It's not 30 minutes or 40 minutes. Read this book. You don't have to buy nothing. All you need is a water bottle and then a permanent marker. And why do I use a water bottle? Because then once I drink the water, I'm the living water. I just prayed in this bottle. This is the water from God. Like this water came from one place. This is God.
Yeah.
Now I just drank it in me. So I'm walking around. Let's go.
Hey, I told y'all, I tried to tell y'all what was coming. I don't know if y'all listen. I tried to tell y'all. I want to address one thing on here. One of the guys, when I was talking about, not putting your faith in your faith and in fasting or in your prayer, he says, hey, you have to have faith in your prayer. I get that. What I meant was putting your trust in your ability to pray or your consistency in prayer. You have to have faith in prayer. Obviously, you gotta, without faith, it's impossible to please God. So I apologize if I misspoke there. I didn't mean don't have faith when you pray. I mean, don't put your faith in your ability or your consistency in prayer. Put your faith in Christ.
What I would say to that is there's like the Orthodox have what's called contemplative prayer, right? So where they will pray a certain prayer several times. And I think when you say don't put your faith in your faith, whoever heard that a certain way, what I would say in that is spend less time thinking about what to say in prayer and more time knowing who you're saying it to. And that is faith in the faith. Like I didn't pray the right prayer. And this generation is still in the prayer Jabez, where enlarge my territory and do all this. And like we pray for these things, and then some of these things happen. So then we repeat the system, not knowing that God moves how he wants to move, blesses how he wants to bless. And if you're watching this and you got your eyes looking at the screen and you can count your blessings and get to one, then you're winning.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, how do you want to give away the books? My thought is the next three guys that follow you on Instagram or whatever. I don't know. I'm just trying to think out loud. How do you want to give them away?
Let's do that. The next three guys they got to follow me on IG or Twitter and then post a thought from the session.
There we go. So follow on IG or Twitter and post a thought from tonight. And is it at RJay
BARS?
Yeah. There we go. So I'm going to put that in the chat, his handle. So next three guys to follow him and post a thought from tonight. Coach will get you a book, and I'm going to, oh man, I'm already following you. I'm going to unfollow you, Coach, and then I'm going to follow you back.
I want to disappoint some people really quick on the book. It's a funny practice. It's on Amazon. And I call it the road game book because you can read it from one game all the way back home. You can read it in 10 minutes. You can read it in the bathroom in one sitting, right? And I found that's the attention span of learning that you have to start with. And once we build up that attention span, then you go to the next stage and then the next stage. And so it's also one of those things where I use stories to build out principles. So I look forward to the guys reading. And I've gave out more of those books than people probably have bought. I was #1 for like a day though. That was cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I gave out.
How old is the book?
3 years. And
Okay.
it was only written because I spoke at a camp and one of the coaches, and he had been coaching for 40-something years. And he's like, can I see your notes from it? I sent him my notes. He's like, I don't feel comfortable sending this out. Like, this is such good stuff for me. It changed me after coaching high school for 40 years. Can we put it into some kind of format to where we can give it away? I thought I could put it on Amazon and just give it away, but you got to charge 99 cents. And so we went that way. And it's just fun to just every now and then I'll jump on social media and just send 10 books to coaches and they'll think it's the greatest day ever. And it's like $1. So
Yeah.
came about and that, fasting. So another one of those, what?
Yeah. I can't wait for book number 2.
Not till I'm 50.
Man, Coach, this has been amazing. Everybody's loving it on YouTube. You've gotten a whole bunch of amens, and I hear you, coaches, and great response and all of that, man. So I just want to personally say thank you, not just for this time, but for, being somebody that I can reach out to, being somebody that encourages me a lot of times from afar and in our group. But man, I so respect who you are and what you're doing and how God's using you. Man, just know our guys, we love you. We're praying for you. Oh man, I got one guy on here saying he don't know how to post on Instagram. And he's not an old guy. He's a young guy. Come on, man. Text me. I'll help you out with that. It's also, the book is 99 cents, man. Just go buy the book. Hey, so fellas, if you're not yet subscribed to our YouTube page, make sure you do that. Hit the little bell so you know when we go live tomorrow night. We'll continue talking about leadership. We're going to talk with Pastor Matt Tarkington from our church in Dallas. So if you're not familiar with Pastor Matt, it's going to be awesome tomorrow. The guy is a walking historian and walking Bible, as we said. Wait, Coach, I think you coined that for Cobb, right? A walking Bible?
Yeah, I coined that for Cobb because, I use parables and stories from my life. This man, Ezekiel 21, verse 9, is actually 9a because they took out the A in this Yes, Lord.
Right.
And here I am.
Yeah.
Enough.
Yeah. No, I know, man. I love Cobb. He challenges me a lot in that way. Pastor Matt does too. So tomorrow's going to be great when we continue this conversation. Coach, thank you again. Everybody, go follow Coach RJay Brash on Instagram and Twitter.
Yes,
man, thank you guys so much for watching. Thanks, Coach.
All right. See ya.